you an in-home care provider and you're trying to provide care inside of a contaminated house? Find out more on today's episode. Today I'm going to talk about the in-home outpatient rehabilitation system gap. Over the years, providing cleaning services for patients in the residential sector, I discovered that there was a gap in the in-home outpatient recovery system. The gap was actually the house. So here's what's been going on. A person may be sick in their home for years or sick in their home for months, and they're shut in. No one's talking to them because they're not maybe socializing them much. Maybe their relatives are out of state, or maybe they have no children who are close by. The neighbors haven't checked on them. The house is becoming a toxic trap. Traditionally, what happens is they're taken to a hospital environment and there's governance over that environment in terms of germ control, dust count, and the doctors are required to scrub in. They basically will oversee the cleanliness and healthiness of that environment. Now, when that patient is discharged from the hospital, they're going right back into a contaminated home, and there's no governance over your private home. I'll give you an example. You have people who may be smoking inside their home. Okay, particulate matter from tobacco products will stick to all the surfaces inside the interior. Oftentimes I'll walk into a home where there has been smoking taking place, and maybe the person who was the resident is in the hospital right now because they have emphysema. And what would happen is I would get a call from the family and they would say, well, we know we can't send him back to that home the way it is because it's going to kill him right away. So this is a problem with the healthcare recovery system because it puts a burden on everyone actually. The house puts a burden on the patient's recovery, it puts a burden on the caregiver. It also puts a burden on the hospital because when that person gets lung infections because they have particulate matter dust all throughout their house, and now it's in their blood, it's in their lungs, and now they're going back to the emergency room. And so what you have is this back and forth to and from the hospital, and it's directly related to the contamination that they're ingesting in their own home. And that's basically where I come in. I'm actually the gap closer. I've talked to one caregiver in the early stages of my involvement with the recovery process, where one of the nurses was caring for one of my clients whose husband actually suffered from a stroke. And because they were my clients before he had the stroke, I was able to maintain that house in a healthy condition. So when the nurse came in, she complimented the house. And so one of the things I like to point out to the caregivers that they can do when they go to evaluate a home that they're going to work in, take a look around and look up. Look up, look down, look under the bed. If the client's bed has dust under the bed, then guess what? The home is contaminated. That means the dust has been there long enough to accumulate under the bed. And if you look up into the ceiling, you look into the light fixtures and you see sometimes the lights are mounted on the ceiling and you'll see it collected with dust. That means that the air pollution in that home has risen to the ceiling often as enough times that now it has now accumulated in the light fixture. The other thing that I advise nurses to do is just walk over to the wall and lean your shoulder onto the wall. Put your head next to the wall and just look down the wall, and what you'll see, what you may find, is you may find dust particles that are actually stuck to the wall. Okay, so if the particles are sticking to the wall, that means there's something going on inside that space that is not going to be good for human habitation. One other thing I want to mention, if you have a patient and the patient is incontinent and they're leaking on the sofa, they're leaking also on the carpet, they're leaking in the bathroom, they're leaking on the floor, this becomes a trigger to a neurological activity in your brain, and you will smell it, and that will send an alert that you are in a dangerous environment. And if that smell continues, what's going to happen is it's going to start to erode your immune system while you're trying to provide care for the patient. You are now subject to the harshness of the environment, and it's going to reduce your focus, it's going to reduce your morality, and it's going to make it very difficult for you to provide the top of the notch care. What I generally do is I compare the way that the air smells across the threshold of the door. So I'm outside the house, I can take a deep breath of air. If I can't take the same deep breath of air when I cross the threshold, then that means there's a major difference between what's inside that environment and the outside environment. These things are going to be triggers and signs that the home is not at the optimal condition to provide medical care. I'm the Incredible Gregory Hunter. If you're a home health care provider, I'm here to help you live an incredible life. This is not maid service, this is intensive cleaning. So reach out to us with the information below and we'd be glad to help you.